What happens when a beloved comedy legend walks into what should be a routine late-night interview, only to discover the host has a hidden agenda that turns a friendly chat into television's most explosive confrontation? This is the story of how Ben Stiller found himself in the middle of a verbal war zone on Jimmy Kimmel Live, facing accusations, manipulation, and ultimately being escorted off the set in what would become one of the most shocking moments in late-night television history. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really motivated Kimmel's behavior that night. Now let's get into this incredible story. Ben Stiller arrived at the Jimmy Kimmel Live studio on what seemed like any other promotional evening. He was there to discuss his latest directorial project, a passion piece he had been developing for over 3 years. The film dealt with serious themes of family trauma and redemption, marking a departure from his typical comedic work. As he settled into the guest chair under the bright studio lights, Stiller had no idea he was walking into an ambush. "Ben Stiller, everybody," Kimmel announced with his trademark grin, but there was something different in his eyes tonight, something calculating. "So, Ben, I have to ask you about something that's been bothering me." Stiller shifted slightly in his chair, his media-trained smile faltering just a bit. "Sure, Jimmy. What's on your mind?" "Well, I've been thinking about your career lately, and I can't help but wonder." Kimmel leaned forward, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "Do you ever feel like you've been coasting on your father's legacy?" The audience fell silent. This wasn't the typical softball question guests expected on late-night television. Stiller's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his voice remained steady. "That's an interesting way to start an interview, Jimmy. I mean, I've been working in this industry for over 30 years, building my own career. But let's be honest here," Kimmel pressed, ignoring the obvious discomfort he was causing. "Jerry Stiller was a comedy legend. Don't you think audiences have always given you a pass because of who your dad was?" Stiller took a deep breath, clearly, trying to maintain his composure. "Jimmy, I loved my father deeply. And yes, he was incredibly talented. But I think if you look at my body of work, from The Ben Stiller Show to Zoolander to the Meet the Parents franchise, I've carved out my own path." "Have you, though?" Kimmel's smile became more predatory. "I mean, even your biggest hits, they're pretty formulaic, aren't they? The neurotic guy who gets into increasingly ridiculous situations. It's not exactly groundbreaking." The tension in the studio was becoming palpable. Audience members were shifting uncomfortably in their seats, unsure if this was some kind of elaborate bit or if they were witnessing a genuine confrontation. Stiller's publicist, watching from the wings, was frantically trying to get the attention of the show's producers. "You know what, Jimmy?" Stiller said, his voice still controlled but with an edge creeping in. "I came here tonight to talk about a film that means a lot to me. A project that deals with some pretty heavy subject matter. If you want to have a serious discussion about my work, I'm all for it. But this feels like you're trying to provoke me for some reason." Kimmel chuckled, but it was cold and mirthless. "Provoke you? I'm just asking questions that I think the audience wants answers to. Isn't that what journalism is supposed to be about?" "Journalism?" Stiller's eyebrows shot up. "Jimmy, you're a late-night talk show host. This isn't 60 Minutes. People tune in to be entertained, to hear about new projects, to have a few laughs. What you're doing right now feels more like an interrogation." "Maybe that's because there are some things that need to be interrogated," Kimmel shot back, his facade of friendliness completely dropping now. "Like how someone can have such a long career in Hollywood without ever really taking any risks, without ever really challenging themselves or their audience." The audience was now clearly uncomfortable, with some people audibly gasping at Kimmel's words. Stiller sat back in his chair, studying his host with a mixture of disbelief and growing anger. "You want to talk about taking risks?" Stiller's voice was getting stronger now, more defiant. "Let's talk about how you've been doing the exact same show for 20 years. The same monologue format, The same celebrity interview style. The same tired bits. At least when I make a sequel, I try to bring something new to it. Kimmel's face flushed red. That's rich coming from someone who made 3 Night at the Museum movies. And they were successful, Stiller fired back. People enjoyed them. Families could watch them together. What's wrong with giving people something that makes them happy? Nothing, if that's all you aspire to, Kimmel said with a dismissive wave. But don't pretend it's art. I never claimed it was high art, Jimmy. But it's honest work, and it connects with people. What I don't understand is why you're so intent on tearing me down tonight. Did I do something to offend you? Is this about something personal? Kimmel leaned back in his chair, his smile returning but now looking more like a sneer. You know what, Ben? Maybe it is personal. Maybe I'm tired of watching mediocre people get celebrated just because they're part of the Hollywood establishment. The studio fell completely silent except for the hum of the cameras still rolling. Stiller stared at Kimmel for a long moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was deadly quiet. Mediocre? Jimmy, I've written, directed, produced, and starred in films that have made hundreds of millions of dollars and brought joy to millions of people around the world. I've worked with some of the most talented actors and filmmakers of my generation. What exactly have you created lately besides a platform to tear down your guests? Kimmel's face contorted with rage at Stiller's pointed comeback. The host had clearly expected his guest to crumble under the pressure, but instead found himself facing someone who was now fully prepared to fight back. The power dynamic in the studio had shifted dramatically. Oh, so now you want to compare resumes? Kimmel snarled, abandoning any pretense of professionalism. I've been hosting this show for over 2 decades, Ben. I've interviewed presidents. I've broken major stories. I've actually contributed to the national conversation. What have you done besides make people laugh at your expense? Stiller laughed, but it was sharp and cutting. At my expense? Jimmy, comedy is about finding truth in absurdity, about connecting with people through shared experiences. When people laugh at my characters, they're laughing with recognition, not at me. But what you're doing right now, this isn't comedy. This is just cruelty disguised as entertainment. Don't lecture me about comedy, Kimmel shot back, his voice rising. I've been in this business longer than you've been relevant. Relevant? Stiller's eyes flashed with anger. Jimmy, I'm sitting here promoting a new film. I'm still creating, still working, still trying to tell stories that matter. When was the last time you created anything original? When was the last time you took a real creative risk instead of hiding behind a desk making cheap shots at people who are actually out there doing the work? The audience was now completely silent, transfixed by the unprecedented breakdown happening before their eyes. Several people had their phones out, recording what they sensed was going to be a viral moment. The show's producers were frantically trying to figure out whether to cut to commercial or let the confrontation play out. You want to know about creative risks? Kimmel's voice was shaking with fury now. How about the risk of calling out the nepotism and mediocrity that's destroying this industry? How about having the courage to tell the truth instead of just patting everyone on the back? The truth? Stiller stood up from his chair, towering over the seated host. You want to talk about truth, Jimmy? The truth is that you've built your career on being mean-spirited and petty. You punch down at people because it makes you feel powerful. You hide behind the excuse of comedy to justify being cruel. Sit down, Ben, Kimmel ordered, but his voice cracked slightly. No, I don't think I will, Stiller replied, his voice gaining strength. You know what the real truth is here? You're jealous. You're jealous that I've been able to create things that people remember fondly. Your show is disposable entertainment that gets forgotten the moment it ends. My films become part of people's lives. Kimmel shot to his feet as well, the two men now facing each other across the desk. Your films are garbage that appeals to the lowest common denominator, And your show is what, exactly? High-minded discourse? Stiller fired back. You spend half your time making fun of regular people on the street, and the other half kissing up to celebrities who are more successful than you. At least I'm honest. About what I'm selling. I'm selling authenticity, Kimmel screamed, completely losing control now. I'm the only one on late-night television who's willing to tell the truth about this sick, twisted industry. Authenticity? Stiller laughed, bitterly. Jimmy, everything about this is fake. Your outrage, your moral superiority, even your friendship with your guests. You pretend to care about people, and then you ambush them on national television. If that's authenticity, I'll take being fake any day. The tension had reached a breaking point. Security guards were now visible at the edges of the stage, clearly having been called in by the increasingly panicked producers. Kimmel's face was purple with rage, and Stiller looked like a man who had finally been pushed too far. You know what your problem is, Ben? Kimmel's voice had dropped to a menacing whisper. You've never had to struggle for anything. Everything was handed to you on a silver platter because of your last name, and you've coasted on that privilege your entire career. And you know what your problem is, Jimmy? Stiller matched his tone, leaning forward across the desk. You're so bitter about your own limitations that you can't stand to see other people succeed. You've turned jealousy into a career, and you've convinced yourself that tearing others down makes you important. Get out, Kimmel said suddenly, his voice deadly quiet. What? I said get out. Get off my stage. Get out of my studio. This interview is over. Stiller straightened up, adjusting his jacket with deliberate calm. You know what, Jimmy? With pleasure. But before I go, let me tell you something. 20 years from now, people will still be watching Zoolander with their kids. They'll still be quoting Meet the Parents at family dinners. But nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to remember this pathetic display of yours as anything other than the moment you revealed who you really are. Security, Kimmel called out, his voice cracking. Don't bother, Stiller said, raising his hand as the guards approached. I can find my own way out. Unlike some people, I still have my dignity intact. As Stiller turned to leave, Kimmel couldn't resist one final shot. Run along, Ben. Go make another sequel. It's all you're good for anyway. Stiller stopped at the edge of the stage and turned back one last time. You know, Jimmy, I actually feel sorry for you. You had a platform to bring joy to people, to make their days a little brighter, and instead you chose to use it to spread misery. That's not just unprofessional. It's tragic. The words hung in the air like a poison cloud. The audience sat in, stunned silence, many with their mouths agape at what they had just witnessed. Kimmel stood behind his desk, chest heaving, looking like a man who had just revealed far more about himself than he intended. Stiller remained at the edge of the stage, and for a moment it seemed like he might actually walk away and let Kimmel have the last word. But then something shifted in Stiller's expression. A calm determination settled over his features, and he walked back toward the desk with measured steps. The security guards tensed, but Stiller held up a hand to show he wasn't looking for a physical confrontation. Actually, Jimmy, I changed my mind, Stiller said, his voice carrying clearly through the dead silent studio. I'm not going to let you have the satisfaction of thinking you won this little tantrum of yours. Kimmel's eyes narrowed. I told you to leave. And I will. But first, I want everyone here to understand what just happened, Stiller continued, turning slightly to address the audience as well as the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, you just watched a man have a complete professional meltdown because he couldn't handle an honest conversation about his own shortcomings. Shut up, Ben, Kimmel hissed, but his voice lacked the authority it had carried earlier. No, I don't think I will, Stiller replied calmly. You see, Jimmy here invited me on his show under false pretenses. He told my people this would be a standard promotional interview. Instead, he planned an ambush designed to humiliate me for his own entertainment. That's not comedy. That's not journalism. That's just pathetic." The audience began to murmur, some people nodding in agreement. Kimmel looked around frantically, realizing that the crowd was starting to turn against him. "You don't know what you're talking about," Kimmel stammered. "Don't I?" Stiller's voice grew stronger. "Jimmy, in the last 20 minutes, you've insulted my work, attacked my family legacy, questioned my talent, and called me mediocre. And why? Because I'm here promoting a film that deals with serious subject matter? Because I dared to evolve. As an artist? Or is it because deep down, you know that your entire career is built on negativity, and you can't stand being in the same room as someone who chooses to create joy instead of misery?" Kimmel was visibly shaking now, his carefully constructed television persona completely shattered. "You think you're so much better than me?" "I don't think I'm better than anyone, Jimmy, but I do think I'm better than this." Stiller gestured around the studio. "I'm better than using my platform to tear people down. I'm better than pretending that cruelty is the same thing as honesty. And I'm definitely better than having a public breakdown because someone called me out on my behavior." The audience was now clearly on Stiller's side, with several people actually applauding his words. Kimmel looked around desperately, as if searching for support that simply wasn't there. "This is my show," Kimmel said weakly. "Yes, it is," Stiller agreed. "And look what you've done with it. You had one of the most coveted platforms in entertainment, a chance to bring laughter and light into people's lives every single night, and instead you chose to use it as a weapon. That's not just unprofessional, Jimmy. It's a waste of a gift that most people in this business would kill for." Kimmel slumped back into his chair, the fight seemingly draining out of him. "Why are you doing this to me?" "I'm not doing anything to you, Jimmy. I'm simply responding to what you started. You wanted authenticity? You wanted truth? Well, here it is. The truth is that you're a bully who hides behind comedy to justify your cruelty. The truth is that you've let whatever success you've had go to your head, and you've forgotten that with great platforms comes great responsibility." Stiller paused, looking directly into the camera. "And the truth is that everyone watching this right now deserves better than what they just witnessed. They deserve hosts who lift people up instead of tearing them down. They deserve entertainment that adds joy to their lives instead of spreading negativity." He turned back to Kimmel, who looked completely defeated. "As for you, Jimmy, I genuinely hope you get the help you clearly need. This level of anger and bitterness isn't healthy for anyone, least of all someone in your position." With that, Stiller straightened his jacket one final time and began walking toward the exit. But Kimmel, in a last desperate attempt to regain control, called out after him, "You'll never work in this town again, Ben. I have more power than you. Think." Stiller stopped and slowly turned around, a sad smile on his face. "Jimmy, that's exactly the kind of thinking that got you into this mess in the first place. You think this business is about power and control, and who can destroy whom. But the truth is, it's about connecting with people, about making them feel something, about leaving the world a little bit better than you found it." He shook his head sadly. "And threats? Really? That's how you want to end this? By proving my point about what kind of person you really are." The studio was so quiet you could hear the cameras whirring. Kimmel sat slumped in his chair, looking smaller than anyone had ever seen him. The audience stared in fascination and horror at the complete collapse of everything they thought they knew about their host. "Goodbye, Jimmy," Stiller said simply. "I truly hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, because whatever it is, it's clearly not making you happy." As Stiller walked through the studio doors, the audience erupted in applause. Not the polite applause of a typical talk show, but the genuine, heartfelt applause of people who had just witnessed someone stand up for decency and professionalism in the face of unprecedented hostility. Kimmel remained in his chair, staring at the doors through which Stiller had disappeared, the weight of his actions finally beginning to settle in. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment of his humiliation, ensuring that this night would be remembered not as his moment of triumph, but as the night he revealed his true character to the world. The audience continued to applaud, some even standing, as the reality of what they had just witnessed began to sink in. They had come expecting entertainment, but instead they had gotten a masterclass in dignity, professionalism, and the difference between someone who builds people up and someone who tears them down. What do you think really motivated Jimmy Kimmel's shocking behavior that night? Was it jealousy, personal vendetta, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from the world of entertainment.